damaged multiple residential quarters in central Berlin last night. The raid caused large fires, with some witnesses describing a sea of flames engulfing several houses. Early reports indicate that a dozen civilians have been killed and scores more badly injured. Several people have also been reported as missing after seeking shelter from the bombs.
As being one of the earliest printed newspapers that can be found in the game, it is also the only newspaper that is actually based on a real event in our world. On March 16, 1943, the Royal Air Force and the United States Air Force bombers struck Berlin in a 30-minute raid. However, all of the following newspapers will show how the situation for the Allies and the world as whole becomes grimmer.
Forced to retreat last night from a Moscow engulfed by flames following a week-long German bomb raid. The barrage of mortar fire heard throughout the night and well into early Thursday morning seems to have obliterated what was left of the inner parts of the city. The destruction of the city comes just after the German victory at Stalingrad. As of yet, there has been no word on the whereabouts of either Joseph Stalin or his high command.
This newspaper indicates that the German war machine is far more powerful than it ever was in our timeline, as evident by their conquests of Stalingrad and Moscow. This was most definitely achieved thanks to the efforts of Death's Head development of the earliest iterations of advanced military weapons for the German armed forces. As for Joseph Stalin and his high command, they likely fled further east and went into hiding.
The Royal Air Force suffered a major defeat yesterday at the battle over Liverpool. Though major losses were reported on both sides, the RAF were forced to retreat after losing more than two-thirds of their fighters. But even when faced with overwhelming odds, our brave boys in the skies continue to fight for the king and country. This fighting spirit may be what constitutes the very essence of Englishness.
Us Englishmen, we fight until the very end,
said a corner shop owner trying to put out a fire raging inside St. Luke's Church.
And I'll be damned if I will let some Jerry come here and tell us what to do.
Was this man channeling the spirit of RAF pilot Jameson? Jameson, who was shot down above Liverpool yesterday, burst out of his burning wreckage, his body on fire and armed only with a pistol, and killed 4 German paratroopers before finally succumbing to his injuries. Even as the enemy stands on our doorstep, the RAF will go to hell and back to kick them out of England. Jolly good, boys.
This event is a major detriment to the Allies. With nearly 66% of the RAF fighter force destroyed and presumably a large chunk of the U.S. Air Wing stationed there, the Germans are now able to further intensify their airborne operations over the British Isles through bombing and the deployment of the Fallschirmjäger Division, which are basically German paratroopers. Despite this, the British people will still fight, as evident by the comments of the corner shop owner. As for pilot Jameson, he was a hero who fought to the very end.
Reports out of Berlin report that the Nazis are constructing an arsenal of superweapons to be deployed on the battlefield. The recent introduction of highly advanced war technology has changed the course of the war, but the Allied commanders are still confident they will win this before the end of the year.
What the Nazis have in military technology, they lack in strategic know-how.
Commented Commander Wilkinson yesterday when we contacted him for an interview.
While not directly mentioned, the newspaper is most likely referring to Death's Head, many military projects like the Panzerhund, Super Soldier Program, the Baltic Eye, as well as many others. Instead of investigating how Death's Head was able to construct such advanced technology in such a short time, Allied commanders are still cocky that they will win the war before the end of the year. But as time will tell, that would not be the case.
The future of humanity is at stake. In a rare interview exclusively for this newspaper, discussing the war effort and the values that make the German race so unique and superior, our beloved Führer delivers his vision for the world after the war.
Make no mistake about it, I want my people to have what is rightfully ours. The English, the Russians, and the Americans, and all other inferior parasites who breed like vermin, will kneel before the master race. This I can promise you.
This newspaper serves nothing more than to be propaganda and to glaze Mustache Man.
The Americans are on their knees.
Field Marshal Franz Gustav Byers told the gathered reporters during today's press conference. The superior German submarine fleet, accompanied by its loyal Japanese allies, has helped Germany achieve a major victory in the Pacific, with more than half of the American fleet destroyed at the Battle of Leyte Gulf alone.
This is yet another major blow to the Allies. With more than half the American fleet destroyed, they are unable to project their naval dominance anymore, which leaves Allied supply ships extremely vulnerable to German attacks.
A fishing boat today rescued a man floating on a piece of wood in the Baltic Sea. The man was taken to a hospital in Mławiec where his condition was stabilized. Doctors say the man has suffered extensive head trauma and is unresponsive to outside stimulus. The unidentified man will be transferred to the Mławiec Psychiatric Hospital for psychiatric treatment.
This mystery man is none other than B.J. Blazkowicz, who was left drifting in the Baltic Sea in a vegetative state after the botched Allied assault on Death's Head compound. One funny aspect is that Allied assault on the compound occurred on July 16th, meaning that BJ was sailing the Baltic Sea for over a month before being rescued.
The cold Russian winter bites hard, but one could not tell, looking at the rosy, smiling forces of the victorious German army and the liberated Russian people. The last battle against the Red Army took place in Izhevsk, following their month-long campaign to seize the Russian capital. A campaign which, after numerous setbacks and hundreds of civilian casualties, caused the Russian people to turn against their own army. With nightly bomb raids by the German Air Force on the Red Army's military factories in the Ural region, it was merely a matter of time before the Russian forces would start to lose their morale. The murderous tyrant Joseph Stalin is yet to be found, but there are rumors circulating that he may have been assassinated by his own men.
This is not surprising considering that German military technology has outclassed all of their enemies. It was only a matter of time before the Soviet Union would fall. As for what happened to Joseph Stalin, he could still be hiding somewhere, but considering that he failed to protect the country from the German threat, it is also likely he would have been killed for his failures.
Earlier this week, a German submarine was sunk in the Cabot Strait just a few miles off the coast of Cape North. Today, hundreds of ships crossed the Atlantic, and the first German troops set foot upon Canadian soil, and the invasion has begun.
Now is the time to be brave.
Said the Prime Minister in an emergency radio broadcast.
It's now or never. Our boys at the front line need your support to defend our homeland, to defend our freedom.
After America lost its naval supremacy, it would only be a matter of time before Germany sent an invasion force to the New World. However, considering that the U.S. did not surrender due to the land invasion, as we will see later on, I would assume that the Allies were able to hold back the invasion force for some time.
It was a devastating defeat for the Russian resistance when the German flag was raised on the western side of the river Volga this morning. In a statement to our reporter on site, Field Marshal Friedrich Ritter said that the victory is not only thanks to our hard-working and dedicated troops, but also the result of a new weapon that was deployed for the first time in battle.
The Panzerhund is a mechanical, autonomous beast of war that cannot feel fear and cannot feel remorse. It is the purest form of killing machine, and it will tear the Russians apart, limb by limb.
After the defeat of the Soviet Union, remnants of the Red Army continued to fight on. But the deployment of the Panzerhund quickly tore down any remaining Russian resistance left fighting.
It was a proudest moment for the Republic of China and the People's Liberation Army as the Japanese were pushed back into Hubei province. Yet from the north, another dark menace approaches at a swift pace. Nazi Germany has defeated the Soviet Union and is now moving towards China. During a rousing speech earlier today, the chairman spoke of his faith in the Chinese people.
A unified China cannot be defeated,
He said,
a unified China cannot be conquered, a unified China will never surrender.
Both the combined forces of the Republic of China and the People's Liberation Army pushed back the Japanese menace. However, with the defeat of the Soviet Union, German forces are quickly closing in to aid their Asian ally.
As if blessed by the sun, the German flag hung high this morning over Buckingham Palace to mark the end of a tyrannical monarchy which has plagued the English people for centuries. Field Marshal Gerolf Feigenbaum, who led the British invasion, cautioned that armed resistance is to be expected. But the majority of the British people will soon realize how they have been fooled by the British government's warmongering leaders. Following the surrender, the whole of the Commonwealth falls under German rule, and the remaining armies have been ordered to stand down.
After constant bombing by the German Air Force and presumably the destruction of the British Navy by superior German ships, the UK would be too crippled to fight back against an enormous land invasion. Although it is highly unlikely that the remaining armies of the Commonwealth would stand down to their new German overlords.
Early Monday morning, a special assault team launched an attack on the last stronghold of the People's Liberation Army. Within hours, the Republic of China surrendered unconditionally. Experts commented that the Japanese government now have no choice but to give up their territorial claims in Asia. Sources close to Field Marshal claim that a plan is being drawn up for both China and Japan, which will transition the two countries into servant states with separate governments and military. These states will, of course, be supremely governed by the superior Nazi Empire.
As to be expected, China would be swiftly and brutally conquered by advancing German troops. Given that Japan would have no hope to even rival the German army, they would have no choice but to submit to Germany, which why it is along with China transitioned into a servant state.
The largest bomb ever invented was dropped 13 hours ago on New York City, largely decimating Manhattan and killing over 200,000 people,
It's an atomic bomb.
said our great leader in a radio broadcast speech to the public.
20,000 times more powerful than the biggest bomb ever created before. But more than a bomb, this is a warning to the American people.
Speaking to the American people in the falling snow on Christmas Eve, the President of the United States, facing complete obliteration, declared the government's total surrender to the Nazis. The announcement comes just days after the atomic bomb was dropped on New York.
This final act of violence may have saved millions of lives that would have resulted from a land invasion of America,
Said the German leader in a press statement following the announcement.
I applaud the president's speech.
A spectacular show was put on by the invading troops parading down the streets of Washington to the roaring sound of German jet fighters passing overhead. Even more spectacular were the massive mechanical beasts known as Panzerhunden, or armored dogs, hulking over the crowds.
Not wanting to risk further nuclear strikes on American cities, the U.S. unconditionally surrenders to Germany, signaling the end of the Second World War and German victory.